Okay, everybody. Well, welcome to From a Certain Point of View. And today we're doing something that is not Star Wars. And, I have a very special guest with me, my wife, Brittany, who I've been trying to really get on the show for a long time now, but she finally showed up for the Wonder Woman 1984 review. So what were your spoiler-free overall thoughts about this movie, and even comparing it to the first one? Because I know we both feel that the first Wonder Woman is like the best DC movie in the new era. I mean, of course, the Dark Knight trilogy was amazing, Christopher Nolan and everything, several years ago. But I think in the recent era of DC, I think this Wonder Woman is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like anytime like the original Wonder Woman, like not the original, but like Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman is on, like I have to watch it. As far as this one goes, I mean, I think that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was really good. Was it better than the original? No, but it's a good sequel to the original.
But yeah, I agree with you. I really enjoyed the first Wonder Woman even more than the second one. But I think the Wonder Woman 1984 is really enjoyable in a lot of different ways. I mean, I think the first one had the advantage of having the World War I storyline to go with it, and and kind of Wonder Woman being this naive character coming into the real world, and
the vulnerability of being in a new place.
Yeah. And
I'm always a fan of a war story.
Sure. So this storyline, and we'll get into this when we get into the spoilers. The storyline for me wasn't as great as the first one. And it definitely takes like a leap of faith.
A way huge leap.
It takes a leap from the audience to put aside disbelief and everything. But I really enjoyed it. I think there's a lot of great character moments within this movie. I think there's a lot of moments that even brought both of us to tears.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
Right. And I think there was a lot of really emotional moments. This movie has a great action, but it also has a lot of heart, and it's a great continuation of the character and her development and everything as a character. But yeah, let's at this point we'll start going into spoilers. But yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely a movie that's worth seeing. If you can go out and see it on the big screen, see it on the big screen. If you're a little worried about that, which is understandable, you can watch it at home on HBO Max if you're subscribed, or just wait till it comes out on Blu-ray. But I think we would both recommend seeing this in one way or another.
Yeah, but keep in mind too, you only have 30 days to watch it on HBO Max.
True.
So you better watch it within like the next 25 days.
True. And they've already greenlit Wonder Woman 3.
Yes, which I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, they're calling this movie a hit. I would say it's relative hit. I mean, I think it made between 15 and 20 million dollars over the weekend domestically. The worldwide total so far is around 85 million. If it wasn't during a pandemic, probably would have made $1 billion worldwide or close to that, I'm guessing. So it is a relative hit, and they're going forward with Wonder Woman 3, which is also the right choice in my opinion. I mean, I think this character deserves another movie, and kind of a trilogy of sorts. I
could watch Gal Gadot forever.
She's great. And
hashtag woman crush.
Yeah. So I think the, still staying spoiler free for now, I think the acting was really great in this film. Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. She absolutely is. Diana Prince. Is that right? And I thought Kristen Wiig did a great job of pulling off the character that we see, both the kind of the awkward side of the character, but then as she kind of transforms into the villainous character too, I think she captured.
Which was surprising for me, because that was another like reservation I had, is like, I'm like, Kristen Wiig playing like a villain, really? Because she's like a funny girl.
It was a surprising choice.
It was great.
But she did great.
She did great. I was shocked. And in a good way.
And and Pedro Pascal, who of course plays the Mandalorian, and he's been in Game of Thrones and everything. I mean, he was, I think, great as the villain. This villain is over the top for sure, and everything. But I think he does a great job.
I mean, I do think he's technically considered a villain, but I didn't feel like.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So
I didn't feel like he was like a true villain. I don't know.
So I think we're dancing around spoilers at this point. I think we would both recommend this movie. So now we're gonna get into spoilers. So I'm gonna throw a spoiler warning up right now, and we're gonna go ahead. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead. There will be a sound and everything for that in here.
I thought my motion was better.
That's in later editing and everything. So. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into some spoilers for Wonder Woman 1984. And, we mentioned the story earlier. This, and I mean, there's an overall theme to this film that I picked up on. It's definitely about truth. It's about truth overcoming lies and overcoming deception. And even in the first scene, which for me, I thought the first scene was amazing. We get to see a younger Diana in the.
I call it like the Amazonian Olympics.
Yeah, it was sort of like the Olympics for these Amazon women, and in the Mascara, I think they call it. And I thought it was a terrific opening scene, and it really set the stage for the theme of the movie, because we see the young Diana kind of cheats to win, or to try to win this Olympic event of sorts. And she stopped just before she would complete that competition and win. And she's reminded that nothing good comes from lies. Basically, you can't be a true hero if it's built on lies, which is, I think, the message of this movie. Would you agree?
I agree, but it also makes you question heroes in general, because isn't there always a lie involved in every hero?
In terms of like them kind of concealing who they are.
Identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Which I just thought of.
I didn't really think of that.
That makes you like plot hole, maybe?
Maybe, but
no. But yeah, in general, I feel like it's a good life lesson that, like, yes, you can get ahead by cheating in life, but what did that cheating cost you? Right. I think for me, was the major thing. It's like, yes, you will get ahead, but what does that cost you?
There's always
there's always a price.
There's always a
price.
No there's always a cost, basically. And I think this film really
business major.
Yeah, and I think this film really sends that message.
Yeah.
But were there any moments for you that were really high, positive moments that really stood out to you for this film?
That's hard, because there were a lot. I mean, I felt like, so I always gauge my like of a movie if I can stay awake, because
let's face it, she falls asleep almost every time we watch a movie at home.
Like, we went to see The Hobbit when it originally came out, and we saw it twice in the theater, and legit fell asleep twice in the theater. So I can always like gauge my like investment, or my, like, if I'm bored or whatever, by staying awake. And like, I literally was engaged the entire time. I mean, I loved, the first scene was really great. I always like when they're on the Mascara. I think that it's such a magical place, and it's so interesting that Diana's the only child there, and it makes you wonder, like, are all these women, like, they were just planted there as full-grown women, or like what happened, And I wish that they would dive into that a little bit more, but that's like a sidebar. But anyway, so I enjoyed that part. I was very, I mean, obviously in the trailer, Steve Trevor comes back in some way.
They didn't hide that.
No. And I'm like, when I originally saw that, again, I was very apprehensive about this, because I'm like, dude, like, how does Steve Trevor come back? Like, this is going to be really weird. Like, he's dead. Like, what mystical? Because, like, to me, the thing that I like most about the a lot of the superhero movies, whether it's DC or Marvel, is that a lot of it's grounded in reality. And even though Wonder Woman is like a god, I still feel like there's a lot of grounding in reality with this movie.
Well, even in the first one, it was grounded in World War I.
Yeah,
You know
and
what I mean?
exactly.
And while I think this film is a little less grounded
Yeah, I agree with that.
than the first one,
which I think is why I prefer the first one than the second one.
Right.
Because like I have that problem with like this, even though I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, which is completely not grounded in reality, like the whole like magical, mystical thing kind of like throws me off a bit with these. But the thing about it that, I mean, I loved it. Like I loved seeing Diana in love. Like obviously she's still in love with Steve, even though he's died 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But seeing that vulnerable side of her and knowing that like she is pretty much invincible and she's like the woman that we all like pretty much like badass want to be. But like seeing her in that moment where she's still, I don't know, it still made you like, you relate to her so much, even though she's a god, you know? And then, so I enjoyed that part and like even their interaction together and everything, and how they explained him coming back. I enjoyed her being the girl that you always want your child to be. Like Kristen Wiig's character was really awkward and everything, and Diana went out of her way to like reach out to her, even though she kind of had ulterior motives. She still made that effort to like be like, hey, you're cool, I like you, you know.
Yeah, she's like Wonder Woman for me is kind of like Captain America and Marvel. Where she's just this very altruistic character that, you know,
she's just good down to the bone.
She's just a good person. Yeah, for sure. So I agree with you on that.
I enjoyed that. I mean, there were parts in between Steve coming back and like Steve, spoiler, leaving and that were okay. I mean, that part like was okay, but I feel like the real like the meat comes in when she has to say goodbye to Steve. And like
that was a tough
and moment. You and I liked that part, like not the saying goodbye thing, but the thing that happened right afterwards in a different way. Like you and I liked it in a different way. Like for me, it resonated with me because as a woman, like a lot of times we put our needs and wants and everything to the side, which Diana verbally like made it clear that she was like, what about like I put everything aside and this is the one thing I want and I still have to put it aside. And like that really resonated with me as a mother, you know, and as a woman. Like I feel like we do that for the better of the group, you know, for the better good. And to see that on like a major level and like her making that choice, like again, makes her so relatable. And like I love that part.
Yeah, for me that part was very powerful. Just it broke my heart to see Diana have to say goodbye to him again.
I don't know that she officially got to say goodbye to him the first time though.
Right.
Which I think maybe made it even worse.
Sure. Because I think I love the fact that in this movie, I love every time like I found it really humorous that every time a guy would like approach her, she'd be like, no, thanks. No, thank you. She didn't need that. But she does have this very vulnerable spot for Steve in her heart and everything, of course, because she fell in love with him. But I loved, it was heartbreaking to see her say goodbye to him. But then the moment after that, where she's just running and because she knows that the world needs Wonder Woman to be at her full strength to take on this threat. And she's just running and running and running and regaining her strength and everything. And she then like flies. And her and Steve had this conversation earlier in the film about how she never quite understood the pilot part of him. And how he does that so effortlessly and everything like that. And he said it's easy. Basically, you just
become one with the wind.
Yeah, and I think Diana,
very Mr. Miyagi.
yeah, and she almost learned in a way, how to fly from him. And I think she carries that on with her, which I thought was pretty powerful.
Which
one of my favorite moments
yeah.
in the movie.
And she had said that earlier too. It's like every time I see a plane, that's like my piece of you that I hold on to.
Yep.
So now
she's like up there in the sky with him, basically, in a way,
Yeah.
So yeah. Anything else you really, really enjoyed about this one?
I felt like the comedic relief in certain parts was like perfect.
Yeah.
Like perfectly timed.
Well, I think if I can chime in here, I liked how the roles were reversed in this movie.
Yeah.
Because in the first one, it was Diana that was being introduced into the world, and Steve was kind of her guide through that. But now it was Diana leading Steve through 1984 because, he's just amazed by everything that he's seeing around him, like even the outfits when he's trying on different outfits.
I really like that was the thing I really appreciated was like the whole fashion section of this.
That was
I
funny.
mean, not that I ever lived, like I was born in 89. Okay. So like I didn't live through the 80s, but 80s fashion is like notorious. And like the thing that really got me was he put on like a fanny pack that was like the the flag of the United States. He goes, "Oh, U.S. issue bag," because like, he's military, so he's like U.S. issued gun,
U.S. issued fanny pack.
Fanny pack. I laughed for like 20 minutes during that entire. I mean, it wasn't even 20 minutes. That was great. Scene. I just kept laughing.
That was great, and I think I had mentioned too that even though I knew it was coming from the trailer when he approaches that garbage can, and Diana's just before that is saying everything around here is art, and he's admiring this garbage can like it's a work of art, and she's like, no, that's just a garbage can. Like
he's like, oh, okay. Like his response
was
perfect.
He is such a great actor in this role.
Well, here's the problem.
Chris Pine,
I don't know if you've ever come across this on like Twitter or Instagram or anything, but they always go, if you had to get rid of one Chris, who would it be? And everybody always says Chris Pine, and I'm like, no, we need to keep him. I love him.
Yeah, so
Princess Diaries fan, like number 2, Princess Diaries 2, all the way. Chris Pine fan.
Not sure about that one, but I can't attest to that. But yeah, I agree that there's a lot of great humor in this movie as well. So yeah. Anything else that stood out to you that was positive?
I mean, the only other thing, I don't know if it's necessarily a positive, but I feel like the emotion that resonated between Pedro Pascal and his child in the movie. Like I don't know, I felt that. And it's not like, I mean, it goes back to like a lot of people have this time management, work life balance issue, and I think that was like truly like thrown at you, not in a bad way. Sometimes like things in movies are like beat you across the head. Like it wasn't like that, but it was very prevalent that like he had this issue where he was so worried about propelling himself.
I think
that he neglected.
And I think he thought that he needed to make his son proud by having all this money and all this power and all this influence, but really his son just wanted his time.
Yeah, and I think that's and attention, that a lot of people...
and we miss that as parents, and that definitely resonated with me and hit home for me with having a daughter, and just realizing that they just want that time with you. They want that connection. They want to know you're present with them,
Yeah, and I don't feel like either one of us are like overly busy.
No, but every once in a while, you get into you get into that mode, and you're like, okay, I just need a break. It
just makes you more conscious of that too. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was like a high point, is like bringing awareness and making you self-reflect, which I think is a good thing in movies.
Yeah.
That it makes you, like, I mean, some movies, you just want everything handed to you on a platter and to enjoy and whatever. But sometimes you need that, that little jostle of like self-consciousness.
Yeah.
That some movies elicit.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I'm with you on your positives. I really did enjoy this movie. I enjoyed the acting. I thought was really great, which I already
Mhm.
mentioned. I thought a lot of the action was also pretty good. I liked going to Cairo, going to Egypt, seeing the pyramids. Like that's a place that I've always wanted to visit. So I don't think we go there enough in movies, um, and so I thought it was kind of cool that we went there. And that whole action scene there was pretty cool. One thing that I didn't notice as much in this movie as the first one was like the CGI. I felt like with the first Wonder Woman, the CGI was a bit more noticeable. This time around, I thought they tightened it up a bit, and I thought it looked better. I thought things looked better than they did in the first one in terms of CGI.
I don't necessarily notice those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would have to have you specifically point that. And we just recently watched the first one, like not yesterday, but the day before. Um, and
I
I
think
don't know that it ever.
it's mainly when like the Amazons are jumping around and doing different acrobatic things, or like Wonder Woman's like leaping, or
Oh,
and I could kind of tell that it was not real. You know
well,
what I mean?
maybe that's. And I mean, and that brings me into like one of my like negative things that I felt about it was some of the action scenes for me
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
felt, and I don't know. Well, number one, okay, they felt to like my word of choice is kitschy. Josh's is cheesy.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
But and I don't know if that's because so I mean this is set in 1984, so I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if their whole like goal was to make it seem like a movie that was filmed in 1984, or if it was intentional, or if it just came off that way. But like that action scene in the um in the mall,
Mm-hmm.
like I felt like so sometimes they'll like slow down the action when she does these like amazing moves that like no normal human would be able to do basically, which is fine, but some like it I don't know, it didn't connect with me in a way.
Yeah, I think the action in this movie was good, not great. And I would say because this movie's set in the 80s, I want to say that I love the 80s. I
Mhm.
love 80s movies. I love 80s nostalgia, like things that we get in Stranger Things. I love that stuff. In this one, the 80s were present, but they weren't like, it wasn't like too much 80s stuff, but you could definitely feel that it was the 80s. But yeah, the mall scene was a little, I would call it cheesy,
Yeah, you said cheesy.
but maybe that's intentional. You know,
Yeah, that's what I don't
maybe it was
know,
intentional, but
but it like missed the mark
that
for
would be
me.
one of my negatives. The other negative I would have is just like I said, the storyline in the first one had this great World War I setting.
Mhm.
In this one, it's more about this stone that basically grants wishes, and it's a little out there. You know what I mean? At first, I was like, "Oh man, I don't know how I feel about this whole wish thing." These wishes get granted and everything from this rock, this gem, whatever it is. But the way that it was explained made me feel better about it because it tied into the Greek gods and everything, and the Greek god of deception, basically. Because the first
Right.
time they were trying to figure out which god it represented, and I thought to myself, I thought deception right off the bat. Um,
Yes.
and they were like, maybe it's hope, maybe it's, but I was like, no, this is
Right.
this is deception. This is bad. So that made me feel a bit better about it when it was tied into the Greek gods and everything.
Yeah, yeah, I agree because I think that that's like the underlying connection
Hmm.
with Diana and Wonder
Yeah,
Woman is that
yeah,
there's always going to be a connection to the gods.
right.
And yeah, I mean, I think that the whole idea of like, okay, there's this freaking rock that maybe is like $75 and it's going to grant you these stupid wishes.
Hmm.
And but the thing that I think really twists it is you get your wish granted, but in return, you have to pay
Yeah,
something, which is
something's
your most prized
your most prized possession
possession.
is taken from you, basically. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
which is
Hmm.
the interesting part of it.
Yeah.
you know? And she had said, like, there are a lot of gods have created these items that are not good.
Mm-hmm.
So that like leaves a door open for like what else?
Yeah.
But that was my thing too, like my apprehension of this whole sequel was the villain, because
Mm-hmm.
to me, like, how do you get better than the God of War?
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, while the God of War was like the ultimate, like I feel like that's the ultimate
Mm-hmm.
person you have to defeat. But this kind of brought it in a different way, which I was surprised about now that I think of it, because it's like the God of War is like an outside person that you're kind of trying to defeat. But
Mm-hmm.
this kind of like God of deception is slightly internal. So you're
Yeah.
kind of like the enemy. It's like the enemy within,
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the people in the world fell into this deception of wanting their wish granted, but then finding that things were absolute chaos. And I mean, I thought it went maybe a little too far with all the wishes taking place like all at once. Like I was like, oh my God, this is madness. It's too much. But I had a little bit of a feeling of that. But
It was overwhelming.
yeah, it was a little overwhelming. So I mean, that would be my only other little negative nitpick thing. But
But I feel like it had to get to that point.
maybe
I
for
mean, that was the
yeah.
ultimate point
Yeah.
where it became unbearable for her
Mm-hmm.
to like continue.
Right. And let's get down to the climax of the film, and basically there's kind of two showdowns that we get with Diana, with Wonder Woman, and the two villains basically of the film. But first, let's talk about the awesome armor that that she gets to wear. I thought that was cool, but basically it got wrecked
Yeah,
like
that was my
pretty quickly.
problem with it. I was
Yeah.
like, she was like, yeah, so whatever her name was in the
Yeah.
past, like wore this like huge gold armor that like had wings and it like encased you to like
Hmm.
prevent other like the onslaught of humans like
Yeah.
coming at you. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there and
But
these
like,
like these gold feathers are like flying off randomly, and I'm like,
yeah, Barbara slash Cheetah or whoever she is,
Apex
Apex
Predator.
Predator. Yeah,
She tore that thing
she
to
tore it up. So
shreds.
that kind of sucked.
I
But
mean, bird
um,
versus cat. I mean,
yeah,
come on.
but
Weird.
I do feel like, okay, so she has this physical confrontation
Mm-hmm.
with Barbara, um, which makes for this pretty cool fight scene and everything like that. But then she had, but there's still some kind of internal conflict there too. But then we get Pedro Pascal's character, and it ends up not even being a physical confrontation. It's this whole like emotional, mental, internal conflict and confrontation,
That
because
she wasn't even directing towards him.
right. I love how the lasso is used here, the lasso of truth or whatever you want to call it. But basically it's used to expose the deception that's going on here, this god of deceit, these wishes, and it exposes the truth and what actually happens. And I thought that was a refreshing way to end a film. Instead of it being this big physical confrontation, it was more of this internal type of thing.
Which I mean, to be honest, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that come into contact with a physical confrontation, but honestly, the majority of your human conflict is an emotional and mental struggle.
Yeah.
And I think that again brings it down to like being relatable and applicable to your life,
Yeah.
Which I think we need in movies.
Definitely. Yeah, so overall, I felt like Wonder Woman 1984 was a really good sequel to Wonder Woman. I think it has a lot of great humor, a lot of great action moments. Maybe it doesn't have the greatest plot or storyline, but the character moments, the acting, the character development, and the heart and the emotion. I mean, man, at the end when Pedro Pascal's character sees his son, who just wants his dad. He wants his dad to save him and rescue him. That wrecked me. I mean, being a parent.
I was slayed.
Yeah.
I was like sitting there like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So overall, I mean, I definitely enjoyed this. And what would you give this movie out of 10?
I mean, you have some like weird rating scale that I don't understand, these like 0.5s and everything.
Yeah, you can do 0.5.
But like for me, I feel like if Wonder Woman, like the first one, is for me between a 9 and a 10.
I think it's definitely a 9 for me.
Yeah. I would say this one's between a 7 and an 8.
Yeah, I agree. I would go with 8 for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe 7.5 for you. So.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, there were like some very minor details that like I am hard on.
Yeah.
And some that I like am extra like cool about. But like, yeah, probably a 7.5.
Right. And the great news is, because of what Warner Brothers and HBO Max, their partnership, we can go and watch it whenever we want to for the next 30 days and check it out again. So I think that's the great thing about this right now. And
but we'll definitely be buying it when it comes
available. Yeah. For me, it's a matter of wanting to support. Like, we could have just watched it at home, but I want to support the movie theaters because I love going to the theater, and I don't want that experience to go away, because in my opinion, there's nothing that replaces that. I enjoy watching movies at home, but there's nothing that replaces that theatrical experience. And then, so I want to continue to support that.
And the other thing that goes into play with that is like, these like Gal Gadot probably is worth how many $1 billion, and but you have to keep in mind too that there are those little people like the rig holders, and
the crew,
the lighting people, the editors, like all of those small people who depend on that income too. And like, it's not always about like giving Tom Cruise all the $1 billion that he gets from from Mission Impossible. It's about the little people too that we have to keep in mind too. So make sure you support your little people, even your local businesses and your local restaurants.
I can relate to that because I'm a little person too. I'm not some big shot.
Exactly. You gotta support your local little people.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this again. And if you get a chance, go see it in the theater. If you're not comfortable, watch it at home if you can. We highly recommend it.
Then buy it when it comes out.
Yeah. So I think that wraps it up for our review of Wonder Woman 1984. Brittany, it was great to have you finally appear with me. I really enjoyed doing this review with you. And one more time, where can everybody find you on the internet?
TheBoschBlog.com. I'm on Instagram, the Bosch Blog. I have a TikTok, the Bosch Blog. And I have a Twitter, but I'm not too tweety. But it's the Bosch Blog.
Yeah. There you go. Yes. Thank you. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at Jedi Jar Jar 1722. And from a certain point of view, we have a website, from a certain point of view.com. And we're on Twitter at certain POV pod. And, all the other socials are pretty much certain POV pod. And, stay tuned to our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing more content like this that's not Star Wars, just to expand our horizons a little bit. But as always, we'll end this with everything we said today was true.
Promise.